What is going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you so much for joining me again for another very special episode with another very, very special guest. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome along to the podcast, Mr. Jack Ellis. And Jack is simply an astonishing actor, and it's a genuine pleasure to have him here on the show. And his credits include, he's worked across stage and television. On stage, he's worked on projects such as Sam Mendes with the Isango Ensemble in Cape Town. I probably pronounced that wrong, so do forgive me.
No, that's right.
Yes, Midsummer Night's Dream, Faust at the Lyric Hammersmith, A Doll's House, Clockwork Orange, and Hamlet at the RSC, Assassins at the Donmar Warehouse, directed by Sam Mendes, Much Ado About Nothing, and A Few Good Men, Richard III, also directed by Sam Mendes at the Old Vic and International Tour, and The Crucible at the Old Vic, directed by the great Yael Farber. And of course, on television, he has played, he's most well known for his role as Jim Fenner in Bad Girls, Coronation Street as Harry Mason, Vera for ITV, Versailles for BBC, 8 Days That Made Rome. And that is just a small sample of the extraordinary work that this man has done over the course of his career. And again, it gives me great pleasure to say, Mr. Jack Ellis, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. God, you made me, that length makes me sound very old. Yeah, no, it's
not my intention. It's not my intention.
No, it's fine. No, it's great. It's great. Thank you very much for a very charming intro. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's nice to talk. I haven't really acted a lot recently, so I've been working more as a sort of director. But
oh, cool.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear. Maybe I'll get back on the stage again. Who knows? Anyway.
Well, I look forward to that. So you're working on anything exciting directorial wise recently?
Well, no, I worked with we did a thing called The Walk with Amal. I worked with Good Chance Theatre. Do you remember the Jungle?
The Jungle, yes.
Well, that's Good Chance Theatre, and we set up. We bought what they in the Jungle is basically the representation of the work that they did in the Calais jungle, the refugee camp. We brought that dome to Paris, and then we set up there and worked with refugees. And out of that, developed a small theatre company called La Troupe. And I live in France, by the way, to those who have just tuned in or whatever. And so, and we developed a company out of that, and we did shows, which I, as a director. So out of that also came The Walk, which was this great big project with a marionette, a large puppet that walked. She was 9.5 years old, 3.5 meters high, and she walked from the border of Turkey, Syria, all the way up to Manchester, through Italy, France, Switzerland, Germany, Turkey, Greece, etc. And everywhere she stopped, there was a celebration. There was an arts organization or dance company or musicians or whatever. They would greet her with a show. And it was in the news a bit. So I'm sure, anyone who wants to have a look at it, it's called The Walk with Amal. And so we were involved with that. I worked with that with my partner. We worked a bit with that and a lot. She was the producer. I was just helped her really. And I am a bit old, and so I just try and do what I want. I work with Isango, you mentioned Isango, which is an ensemble, amazing company from Cape Town, and I did SS Mendes with them, and we did that at the Lindbury, the Opera House in Covent Garden. They've got a new production coming on, which I don't think I'm going to be in, but I'm slightly involved with. I'm kind of picking and choosing and doing really what I want at the moment, and I'm enjoying it enormously.
Good. Well, it sounds fun. It sort of gives me around the world in 80 days kind of vibes. That
you get a bit of a vibe of Phineas Fogg. She called myself Phineas Fogg. That's me.
I'll call you that for the rest of the show. Yeah. So one thing I like to do with this podcast, I sort of, before we jump into some of the work that you've done, I always like to start at the beginning, in a way, as Dylan Thomas says. So where did the love of acting come from? What made you want to pursue this as a career?
It's a dangerous question to ask in a way, because I wasn't any good at anything else. And I'm not even any good at that. I basically, I was pretty hopeless at school. I was a bit lazy. I was a goalkeeper. I liked football, cricket, sport,
Nice.
and stuff like that. I wasn't very bright. I don't think I wasn't. Well, I know I wasn't stimulated. I wasn't. There was no one really there to. But there was a good English teacher who took me on board, and I was acting by the age of 14 at school, and then partially my brother, my eldest brother, you know, Poldark. Well, my eldest brother was Robin Ellis, who was the original Poldark.
Oh wow.
So I used to have to sit with my parents on a Sunday night and watch, you know, well, no, that's not true. Yeah. I guess I was still at school. I was a teenager, so I was kind of infected by that. But ironically, our careers have been completely different, totally different. I went off and was a founder member of the Actors Touring Company, and I think I went to drama school at Bristol. I kind of fell into it really, but I think that I was bitten by, well, I didn't learn much until as an actor. I don't think I really learned much until ATC, the Actors Touring Company, which I was a founder member of. And we started touring all over the world. And there you had to, you know, literally iron the costumes, put up the lights, and played Caliban or the Duke in Measure for Measure, or, you know, playing, you know, large, you know, parts. We kind of shifted the parts around. We were only 6 people, traveled around in a van. So it was kind of idyllic in those 79 to, before that I'd done rep. You have to get your card in those days, which is your union card. So you had 9 months, you had to have 9 months of experience on your card. And that made you a proper actor. You had a provisional equity card. It was a bit like driving. You had a provisional license, and then you got a full driving license. And it was really after that. It was during those 5 years with that company, working with John Metallic, who's the director at the time, and traveling all over the world as an ensemble. And that's where I kind of my instincts. I allowed my instincts to kick in. Really, because I think it's very important to allow because to be instinctive, and then to know how to deal with those instincts and how to guide them and drive them, which sometimes can be a little, it can be, you gather a little wear and tear that way. You know, I'm not a hugely technical actor. I never really was. But I'm quite lucky because pardon the expression, but I have a large instrument. I'm quite a big bloke. I've got a big voice, always have done, and one that's I did, as I say, I did a lot of sports at school, so I kind of my body was able to take it, and also I kind of enjoy the thing of getting lost on stage. But also that's mixed with that awful fear that comes with it. So there's a sort of interesting combination that runs along. But I'm sure we'll go back more into that later on in this. I'm sure. Yeah. So I think I was probably influenced by my brother initially when I was very young, because it looked a bit glamorous. But then when I started to do it, it was really touring with that company that got me going. It wasn't necessarily drama school or anything like that. I was never a very good pupil.
No, I completely resonate with that at all. I wasn't good at any sort of science or maths or anything. Drama was the only subject I felt free and at home in. Did you still follow football much? You still follow?
I do, yes. You're going to ask me which team I support, aren't you?
Who is your team?
My team is the current English women's team, who I am absolutely in love with, and I think they're great. No, actually, that I'm so happy about the England women's team because
they're doing
and about women's football generally, because I think it's fabulous at last.
Absolutely,
they're getting a voice, and they play really great stuff as well. It's different, But Arsenal, sorry.
I like you even more.
Oh, great! Good.
Yes.
Go on, you Gooners. Excellent.
Yes, all Gooners here. Woo.
Yeah, what a season we have ahead of us.
Oh, good.
What a season! What a season going to be. Could be dreamland.
Could be. Yeah. I'm not getting ahead of myself over the years.
No, we have to be very calm.
Yes. As an Arsenal fan, my whole life I've learned to just take one game at a time.
One game at a time. Well, boy, do we! Yes, we suffer for our team, but I kind of enjoy. There's a sort of enjoyment in that suffering. But I think there's a team, a hell of a team being lined up.
Yeah, I think
Zinchenko and coming in and of course,
Gabriel Jesus. Yeah,
Jesus.
I
I
think
mean, how can you lose with Jesus in attack?
I know. We are blessed as a team with the Messiah. So
We are blessed.
Oh well, Arteta, bring home the bacon, please, for us,
Yeah.
please. We need something to celebrate. Anyway, but good. We have a Gooner on the podcast. This is great. Let's jump into some of your work. I'd like to talk about your roles in the spectacular productions of Richard III, directed by Sam Mendes, which started at the Old Vic and then went around the world. You think you went to every country at that point. And also your involvement in the spectacular production of the Crucible at the Old Vic in 2014. I was lucky enough to have one of your co-stars of that production, Adrian Schiller, has been on the show.
Adrian,
who played Reverend Hale. And it was lovely to talk to him. He's very knowledgeable.
He's lovely, very generous, nice guy.
And let's start with Richard III. So how did it come about? Did you have to audition for the part?
Well, no, very simple. I basically, I'd worked with Sam before. I think he
Assassins,
in Assassins, but some years before. Interestingly enough, I think, as in often these cases, there was someone else in mind, and he wasn't able to do it. I was available. I went in to meet Sam, and I didn't even read for it actually, but I knew Sam, and Sam and I, we developed. We knew each other. So also, I think that ask me the next question, because I think you might be asking. Because I was just going to ramble on, but just ask me the question.
No, not at all. The first question is, what's it like working with Sam Mendes? Because I just adore his work, and what's it like working with the man himself?
Absolutely adore it. Really, really enjoyable. Very relaxed, and encouraging. The thing about the Richard III, Assassins was a very different experience, because Assassins, we had Stephen Sondheim there. And we didn't have the writer with us on Richard III.
Oh, sadly.
Fortunately, sadly, he wasn't available. However, and that was very much a collaborative experience. Assassins. This we had half American, half English cast, and in a way, and Richard III is a pretty big play, and we had a very big guy playing Richard, and it was kind of what Sam was brilliant with, that was marshalling it in a very generous and capable and good and it was a really good production, because it had to go. We had to go to China, so we had to go to Turkey, we had to go to Italy, we had to go all over the world, and it was the Bridge Project. So there were other productions involved as well before us. So in a way, it was quite a well-oiled machine as in terms of its touring, but. It was. I really did enjoy it a lot. It was a fascinating experience. He allows you to find it. He doesn't. Sam isn't a director that sort of tells you what to do. He allows you to find it. Although, of course, what he's very good at is he knows kind of what he wants. And he's very good at kind of marshalling you into that, but without it almost, you think, oh, I got you, this is really good. And then you realize, you think about it, and actually, that's probably the Sam kind of, this is what he wanted in the first place. I like, he's a very nice flow.
I was lucky enough to have what's her name? Zoe Ford Burnett, his associate director. I was lucky enough to have a workshop with her a few weeks ago, actually, and
cool.
She was delightful. She was delightful, and she told me in the group that apparently he's a fan of Family Guy and some form of cake. I can't remember what it is now, some sort of thing, but apparently he's a big fan of Family Guy.
Also, actually, there's another thing with me and Sam is that I play cricket, or I did play cricket, and Sam, when he was in Stratford, he captained against a professional side. I've actually kept the wicket to Brian Lara, so I was a keeper.
Wow.
And so we had a sort of RSC team, a six-a-side thing it was, and Sam was it, because Sam's a great cricketer. He played for Cambridge.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It was Cambridge.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that. I wonder what he's thinking of the current cricket scores at the moment. I bet he's
it's quite up and down, isn't it? At the moment, it's pretty
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, but the test side is fantastic.
yeah,
One day is got a bit to go.
yeah. I love how we can just jump between acting and sports. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. There is a. I mean, a lot of actors. Well, and cricket. I mean, cricket is a very good sport for actors because there's this concentration that's required, and also this you have to block things out, you know, and yet there are moments like when you're filming, there are moments of great when you're standing in the third man and nothing's going on, you know, and then suddenly, bang, something happens. The ball comes to you, and you've got to deal with it. I mean, there are many, you know, similarities, many sort of crossovers there with acting, with cricket and football. I love sport because, I was quite good at it when I was a kid, but also, I think there's that. No, I mean, we watch it when people watch it. And this is what so upsets me when I see all this Twitter rubbish about, when Rashford and the boys miss those penalties. You know, I mean, it's just
Sancho and Saka. Yeah,
really. I'm sorry. It's like, oh God. I mean, you know, it breaks my heart because it's just not. It's just that level that you're at. Nobody really knows. You know, I mean, I'm saying, you know, it's far worse than walking on the stage for the first time in front of God knows how many thousands of people. That's another thing about Richard III, actually, just to fly off that, is we did play Epidaurus. Now, Epidaurus or Epidavros, however, it's the Greek theatre just outside Athens. I remember Sam saying, because I know why, I was I walked in there and Sam was up at the back. And he said, let's swap. I'll go up there. You come up here and I'll go down there. So he went down there. And he went literally like that. Can you hear that? Just clicked his fingers, and I could hear it right at the top of the theatre. You know, I mean, incredible acoustic. And then that night happened, and we played to 12,000 people. Wow. I mean, 12,000 people. You know, that's a lot of people. You know, it's kind of almost a League One ground, and League Two, it was, I mean, that was incredible because also that we were playing different spaces and different theatres, and Sam was very good at that. He's very good at setting a production that could then play to many environments and many theatres.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Epidaurus actually because that was. I mean, I watched the documentary that was filmed around that, and I can just, the scale of Epidaurus is just insane. And like, I think one of the tour managers said it in the show. He said that you played like to sold out houses at the Old Vic for like the first 6 weeks before you went on tour, and you played to more people at Epidaurus in 5 nights than you did in 6 weeks at the Old Vic or something like that.
That's right. We played 3. No, we did 3 nights in Epidaurus. And Richard III, I think, yes, Richard III is definitely, there's only 2, this century, there's only been 2 other events which have played 3 nights consecutively and sold out at Epidaurus. One were the 3 tenors, and the other one was Maria Callas.
Wow.
So, you know, we're in pretty select, fine company there. And I mean, that's, you know, our star, Kevin Spacey, was a big pull on that. And also, of course, Sam. You know, I mean, Sam is the, you know, one of the top directors in the world, and of course, he's the Bond director. So and there's something else about that, is that when you walk through and you go down, you do a little pathway down to the theatre, and you walk into the theatre. You're looking, and you sit, when in rehearsals, you sit on the stones, on the seats. And these seats have got they've got little curves in them, but these are curves. How many bums have actually, you know, they have sat on those seats? You know, the whole place is just reeking with history, with humanity. Yeah. You know, and you get that sense of, and what is theatre about? It's about telling stories, and it's about sharing stories, and that is what it is, you know. And the other thing is, of course, what Peter Brook says: you have a space, and then once one person crosses that space, you have the beginning of when another person joins them, you have a piece of theatre. And that's all it is. It's just a space. What I love about it is the simplicity of it. It's so easy, really, you know, so easy to start a piece of theatre. Very difficult to create something that's wonderful. And often, you know, we just get too complicated. I think, well, some stuff I see, I think, you know, do we need all that? But it is, it was a very powerful experience.
Yeah, I can't imagine how the whole cast felt on the first night. You know, when you're about to walk out on stage and there's 12,000 people there, and you're just, I'm sure the heartbeat must have. Well, if I was in that situation, I would be like, okay, just breathe, just breathe.
Well, you know, funnily enough, it's weird. I think actually, I was less nervous because, really? Because it's like, I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, this is crazy. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And there was a feeling of amongst us all, everything sort of went up a bit. I worked with this company, the South African company called Isango, and the last show I did was at the Royal Opera House. And English dressing rooms before a show tend to be quite quiet, and you get the on ma ma ma, you know, you get a little bit of warm up, and it's quite quiet, and people are very concentrated. This company is not quiet. This company is singing and singing and singing and singing and clapping and dancing, and there's this feeling that you get together, this ensemble feeling of singing, and then you walk on stage and you're carrying something that's because the work's been done. The work is actually already done. You know the lines. You've done the rehearsals. You know. Now it's time to share it. But that feeling of doing it is which I had with Isango. That night in Epidaurus, I think we all had the same feeling in a way. You know, we weren't being frightfully British or English or American.
Let's make as much noise as we can backstage.
Let's get things going. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it came to, because you played Hastings in that production, who has a very, very tragic and quite abrupt sort of end to his life, you know, and of course, as history tells us, he was kind of executed there on the spot by Richard III after apparently receiving a tip-off from one of his advisors. How did you approach the role in particular?
Well, the thing about Hastings is that Hastings is he's kind of having an affair as well, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the thing about Hastings is he's not really very bright, and he kind of doggedly believes that Richard is cool, is okay. You know, he absolutely. So it's such a shock when Richard suddenly accuses him of being the big betrayer. I had, now another sporting allusion. Interestingly enough, I had Sam Allardyce in my mind, which is a very straightforward, honest, quite macho. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a bit like that, you know. and actually, probably quite surprised that there's something that I don't know. I had this. So in a way, that was what Sam and I dreamt up for Hastings, and it kind of worked. It was interesting because it was there was this kind of dogged, kind of, you know, not very bright northern lad as Hastings. This is a southern town, who and in the middle of these other actors, American. There was also, and it was. I think it kind of worked. It was. It's a long time ago. Some of the stuff we were talking about is 2012 or 12. That was. So as I remember it, that was one of the main. Once you get something like that, once you get a hook, it can be really helpful, and Sam was really good at that.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really cool. Let's see. So when it comes to actually tackling the text and with Shakespeare itself, you know, what's your approach to that? Do you are you particularly aware of the line endings? Are you particularly aware of the beats in the line? What's your approach to Shakespeare?
I read it and read it and read it and read it. Work it out. Work out the sense over and over again. Try and find the sense. I'm also a bit of I'm not a musician, but I've got quite a good sense of rhythm. So I mean, I'm not a great beat merchant. I'm not a great, even I'm not even that good at going to the end of the line and rising at the end of the line and then going, I think meaning is meaning. What does this mean? And once that found out the meaning, what am I doing? Why am I doing it?
Mm.
And otherwise, it's going to sound like Shakespeare, if you know what I mean. Shakespeare in the kind of archaic sense.
To be or not to be.
Yes.
The question.
Yes, or not. Oh, sorry, that was a bit naughty. Yes, all that sort of rising. I mean, actually, Gielgud was amazing.
Yes.
Sir John Gielgud, who had this incredible voice. But I think there's in certain parts, I think it's probably quite good. However, well, I don't think it's actually myself, but I think it's very, you're just not listening, you stop listening. And the other trouble is with Shakespeare, it's very easy to end up actually listening to yourself and kind of, and also the other thing is not to think too much. You've just got to learn the lines. I keep saying this is very boring, but learn the lines, say them in the right order, but do your homework. Know why you're saying it. Well, every single movement that you make has to have some sort of, has to have a meaning in it, and every word that you say has to have. So, what's my attitude behind this? Why am I saying this? Blah blah blah. All that work is done, and then really just get on stage and do it, because there's so much to deal with when you're actually on stage. You can't be thinking, I really need to kill this person, or you can't be thinking things that are, and you don't know whether you're going to, for the audience doesn't know necessarily. I didn't know I was going to die. I didn't know that I don't know the beginning of that scene that Richard is going to come and then clobber me and then condemn me to death. At that time, I'm thinking everything's okay. But why is everyone getting such a worried about? Why am I here? Why have I been dragged out of bed so early? No, it's fine. He's fine. Bang. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You mean I'm going to die? Sorry. That's you've got to be free in the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think it's
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh no. Are you still there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. You okay?
Sorry, you froze for a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can
You froze for a second. It may have been because my acting was so awful. I froze green.
That's fantastic. It was fantastic, mate. No, can you see me?
Yeah, I can. You're all moving. All yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, this Zoom universe is tricky sometimes. But yeah, so yeah, I know what you mean. It's like this feeling of like play it beat by beat, because I'm just finishing my MA at GSA at the moment, and
all right.
It's something that's kind of been pounded into us, is like playing it beat by beat by beat by beat by beat, and just, as you say just there, like everything's fine, everything's okay, and then suddenly it's like bang, and like what, you're gonna kill me?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, what's gonna, and actually that helps, because I think, I'm certainly guilty of this in the past when I've been doing kind of like Amdram and stuff. It's like I walk on stage and I'm like, I know what's going to happen in a scene. I know how to react. I know it's this thing.
Yeah.
But at drama school, and I'm sure you've had this experience as well, it's like, no, don't worry about what happens next. Just focus on what's happening now.
In the now. Exactly.
In the now.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I think this beat stuff, the beat stuff, it depends. It depends on what level. I don't know. It depends on who you are, what you are, and how you are. I think it can be useful. I've never really done it. I have done it. Obviously, sometimes you have to go. Was it how many beats is it? 14? 12?
No.
Anyway,
12
beats or whatever it is.
Kill me.
But it's don't worry. I really don't know, and I should know. I've done enough.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I'm working
10 to 12. 10 to 12, I think.
12, yes.
Yeah.
I'm currently. I'm looking at. I'm actually trying to learn as much Shakespeare as I can at the moment, simply because as an exercise, but also there's a little thing that I'm doing down here. I don't live in England, for those who are watching. I live in France, so there's a little something happening here that I might do. And I think that it's. One of the most difficult ones, I think, is all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players.
Mm.
They have their exits and their entrances. One man in his time plays many parts. He's acting, whatever it is. And I have to say that it's difficult because it's 7 ages, and you go through them, and it's a list.
Mm.
And actually, it's quite difficult to remember because you get lost in the list, especially when you get to justice, fair round belly with good capon lined.
Yeah.
And but when you're doing the list, you haven't got a list. He hasn't got a list when he's saying it.
Mm.
In his head, he's creating them as he's going.
Yeah.
And that's why when you get to sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans whatever, sans everything, it's the audience should go through life, what it is to be live and then die. I mean, it's an incredible speech, but it is actually quite tricky. It's a tricky speech.
Yeah.
I think, that's quite.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be a steward at the Globe the summer before COVID, and one of the productions was As You Like It, and I have to say, like I think they gender swapped a lot of the characters. There was a female sort of doing Orlando's speech, and I thought she did a fantastic job, and she had this lovely natural way of, as you say, listing things off, and just as you say, like first thing that comes into your head, and that's a very, very tricky thing to do, and I thought she did it superbly. And but I suppose Hastings has just this huge shock like to him that happens as a result. And I suppose like when it hits you like that, like every night, of course the thing is you had to die 8 times a week, and how was that?
I've died more than 8 times in a week, I can tell you that.
But yeah, and it's interesting. I played a character in my final production at GSA who gets his throat cut at the end of the show, and it's just like I don't know why, but it's an odd experience dying on stage every night. But
well, I've died quite a few times. The worst one was actually in Bad Girls, the series that I did.
Yeah,
dying that, well, God, I mean, it went on for 2 days to shoot, and I was covered in blood. I was in gunk and everything. I mean, but dying is weird. I mean, they wanted it to be very melodramatic. So, but we don't. It's something we'll never know until we do it, until it really happens. Because I mean, there is the other thing, of course, about being an actor is that one does sort of like to try and experience. There is an element of the fact you do need to go through life, go through things in order to be able to maybe not that you don't die in order to be able to represent death, because obviously it's impossible. It's the one thing we don't know how to do.
Yeah.
But often I think the best are the ones that are less. I think dying is. Well, I held my father. I witnessed death, and my father. Held my father's hand when he died, and it really is very. It's very. You just went. It just went, and it's interesting. It was like a kind of life just emptied from him, and it was. But I mean, if you have a heart attack, I mean, there are all sorts of. You can find out how to die. It's not a particularly. You can go to a paramedic, or we'll go to a nurse, or go to a doctor, or whatever. What are the symptoms of this, and then you apply it to yourself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But the thing is don't want people to think you're marvelous dying. You're just dying, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I died wonderfully tonight.
This is a marvelous death.
Yeah. Yes, it's.
Oh dear. But yeah, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I think you've already answered this question. Actually, there's a question about Sam in the rehearsal room. Did he want firm control, or there was kind of a freedom there? But I think you've already kind of touched on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of the two.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, I was going to ask you about. You mentioned you went to China as part of that tour and stuff like that, and you took it around the world. And one thing I noticed in the documentary was that it seems like a lot of the audiences you went to across the world really engaged. I'm not saying that China didn't engage with it, I'm sure they did, but it feels like a lot of the cast came off and gave interviews in the wings where they went, they're very quiet.
Yeah, they were.
They're concentrating a lot. And yeah, what was that like, taking Shakespeare to China?
Well, they were. I mean, basically, they were always quiet when the language. Italy. I mean, Naples was pretty quiet as well.
Oh yeah.
When you're in a country where the language was either the second tongue or the mother tongue, interestingly enough, it became more comic. In other words, there were more laughs. They were very quiet in China because I think they were. I mean, it's an interesting piece to take to China. I remember with ATC, we took The Tempest to Argentina.
Wow.
And that was when the colonels were just about to be usurped, and that was about the usurpation, and Chile as well, Pinochet. Wow. And then, in a way, well, I don't think we brought about Pinochet's downfall, but certainly we were. Anyway, I think that, which is not. I think that I think it's a. Sorry, I just got lost.
That's okay.
Well,
you went to Argentina. You took a show to Argentina.
No, Argentina. No, but what was it about? Oh yeah, China.
Yes.
I think the audience was afraid to show any reaction.
All right.
To a degree, actually. I mean, there is it's a weird place, and for me, rather beautiful in many ways. But I think I think it was the one place that I did when none of us felt comfortable in. I walked along the Great Wall and so on. I had a fantastic experience, an actual sort of like a tourist experience. But it felt, and of course they politely clapped at the end, and then you come out and there's no one there. Everyone's left. So China for me was an interesting experience as a kind of sociologically. And politically, but I think I don't think it was the greatest reaction to the piece we had. So it was a long time ago. I do remember coming off stage, and that the dressing rooms were miles away from. You had to get in a lift, and they were on a different level, and going up and down. And I had to walk miles and miles to the stage, and there were soldiers, sort of basically. Posting, stood, to attention by doors and by the lift, and obviously don't have in any other theatre that I've played. I think there is that sense of being watched, being explored actually, and slightly maybe just because it's a country that desperately wants to be able to do. I remember. The guy from the opera house I got to talk to at the time, he was from France and he was running the opera, I think, for a bit, and he was saying that they basically they want them to be able to do magic flute at the same level with the Chinese actors, singers and dancers and so on, at the same level within at least 2 or 3 years, which it's not in their culture. And for me, China is such a deep culture in its history, and it's fascinating culture, which it doesn't seem to want to explore. It wants to somehow be the same or as better than our culture, or better at our culture than our culture. Whether that makes any sense at all, I don't know. I am shooting from the hip here, so there's a lot to go. But it's just odd. Odd. Basically.
Yeah, I think you never know what kind of audiences or how they're going to react, and sometimes it's a surprise when there is a reaction, sometimes there's a surprise when there's no reaction, in a way. And I suppose you can't really, I think someone said you can never really second guess what audiences want, in a way, and you never know what is going to make them tick, which is,
you never know anything really. You do the work. There's a great story of Ralph Richardson, who's those young people who may not know, and Laurence Olivier. They were doing, I think he was doing Othello, and it was at the Old Vic, and Olivier was not. It was the first night. Olivier was not feeling too good. He went round. He said, "I don't feel too great tonight. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I'm kind of apologising in advance." The show happened. It was amazing. God knows how many curtain calls. And he comes off from the curtain call, goes storming down the corridor, goes into his dressing room, slams the door. Ralph Richardson comes along and says, opens the door, knock, knock, knock. Yael! He opens the door and says, Larry, that was amazing. You were absolutely amazing tonight. Fantastic. And he said, I know, just don't know how or why. You know what I mean? It's a sort of, it's a good, I think that's it. I know. I just don't know how. I think that's right.
Yeah.
You know,
You just never know, do you?
I mean, you know, I've come off thinking I was absolutely shite, and then the directors come in and said, "That's the best show you've done, Jack."
Wow.
Oh God, yes. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the great. That's. I mean. God, it's so easy. I mean, one has to. I'm very, you know, I've got this constant, slightly schizophrenic thing between, because I'm a big fan of European theatre, of Brooks, Stein, you know, even Grotowski, although it's a bit too far gone. But I mean, also, you know, Eva von Hoff. Although, I mean, what I mean is that I think it's all a melting pot. It's all great. I think it's all great. You know, and we've got to work out what works for you. And I just I don't know. I just get I don't want to become pretentious. That's all when I'm saying it. I hope I don't sound it.
No, don't worry about that at all.
But I think that I think that one of the beauties of being an actor is that actually that it's a bit like, I mean, if it works, in a way, the best thing, if you don't understand why it's worked. In life, you don't know why. You don't know what's going to come next. We don't know what's happening. We don't. You know, we really don't know how interesting or how good or whatever we are. We are just who we are. And if you've come off stage and you don't really quite know, but you then get changed, get dressed, go to the pub, and you know, or whatever, usually pub for me, and you know, then that's that. And then someone comes up to you and says, like, you've been very generous and kind to me, and said, you know, I'm marvelous, I was, and this and that. And that's great. That's fantastic. That's that. I mean, what kind of job is there that's like that? I mean, no one goes up to a bus driver and says, "Do you know what, mate? That is the best number 13 drive I've ever had in my life. I never got to Golders Green. It's such a fantastic way.
It's
you know?
such a smooth ride.
Smooth ride, baby. It doesn't exist for a lot of people, you know. And you've got wins. You've got people who win and succeed and make money. You're not going to make that much money, not in my position as an actor, but you know, you do get that other bit, which is so beautiful. And then sometimes nothing, and then you go, oh, shite. But often that's not your fault. It's the you know, the production's not too hot or whatever.
Yeah, no, I had exactly the same experience. We did our showcase last week, in fact, and we did
congratulations. What was it?
We did like 2-minute pieces from plays, and I actually wrote a piece
cool.
from one of them, which was really cool. And then I did an extract from a play called Cats and Music, who's the playwright, I can't remember, sorry for listening, and the other one was from a play called Milked by Simon Longman, which was very, very enjoyable to do.
Interesting.
And Milked,
okay.
Milked, as in, and it's a story about a cow. These two brothers, they find a cow, and the little extract I did with another one of my guys on the course was just sat there talking about medicine. So it's like, what's this? Oh, it's cow medicine. So what do you do with it? Oh, we have to give it to the cow. And it's like, okay, so what do you do with it? And it's like this kind of comedy thing going on. Yeah. And it's funny because like at one point they go, okay, so we can't just feed it to the cow. Okay, so what do we do with it? Well, that's the thing. They said, what, you have to shove your hand up a cow's ass? It's like, what, you have to do that? And it's like, well, I don't have to. It's like, no, this is your shit idea. It was a lot of fun to do. I was very lucky to have found that in a way. It's by a playwright called Simon Longman, and it's a beautiful play. And I'd love to do it, actually. I'd love to be that character, one of those characters, Snowy and Paul. I played Paul. Paul was really, really good. I'd love to play that in town one day. So if any producers listening, you know where to find me.
Yeah, and if you want me to direct it, I'm very happy to do it. So
Yeah, we have a director already, Jack. Thank you so much. And cool. So speaking of audience's reaction, I think let's jump into your work with the Crucible at the Old Vic. And I said it before we came on, and I was going to say it again now, but I thought your performance in that was simply astonishing. It was spectacular. I was unfortunate I didn't make it to the theater, unfortunately, because it sold out literally in like minutes. But I was lucky enough to catch a sort of a screened recording of it.
Other people talk about it. I've never seen it. A lot of people talk about it. But it was an interesting one because it was a really difficult one to do because the performance was very big. My performance was big, loud, very loud.
Yes.
I didn't know, because I've done a lot of television and so on, and you're not supposed to be loud on television. No, I was very aware of cameras being here, there, and everywhere. But I just gave up in the end. I just did what I did on stage. But this is something I've spoken to. Another one of my guests on the show is the great Rebecca Rini, who's a movement director at Central. And we were talking about the body and how like this kind of radiation of energy from the body. And I remember watching it at the Barbican, and when you made your first entrance into Act 3, it was just like the air around you and like the energy, the dark energy you brought of Danforth to the stage. I mean, it really, really stuck. It still sticks with me even today. And, you know, that's a real testament to yourself of how much work and effort and how much dedication you put into that role. And it was a genuine pleasure just watching that. So thank you for you're very kind. Thank you very much. It's a compliment. Very, very, very well taken. Thank you. I mean, it's a tricky one, actually. I mean, any Danforth is hard because simply because you've got to spend the first 3 acts or 2 acts at least, 2 acts.
2 acts, yeah.
In the dressing room or wherever. I actually what I would do is the show would start because we all went on stage at the beginning, and we had a sort of tableau at the beginning, and then we'd leave, and then the show would start. And I just went straight up to the rehearsal room at the Old Vic, and I just locked myself in there and just went over and over and just you know, I just tried to. I did it almost every night, and I did that. Sorry about this.
No, it's okay.
I have to say, it was hard work, that show, because Yael is she's an amazing director, and also asks a lot of her actors, you know, and consequently, because I played dark characters before, especially, you know, in TV and things. And I started the rehearsal process sort of not wanting. I wanted to do a rather clever take on Danforth. I wanted to do something different. You know, I didn't know the play at all, and I was cast. Although I'd gone for the interview, 6 weeks or 2 months before I even, and it was only in 2 weeks before the show rehearsed that I actually got the job. I was always being. Pretty certain. And so I only had 2 weeks to really prepare for it.
Oh, wow.
Before rehearsals, that is. And I like to learn as much as I can before. I like to learn the lines. I'm sorry about this. Let me turn
That's okay.
I'll turn this off. That's it, it's done. I didn't really know what I was doing to start with. And actually, Adrian was really helpful. Adrian Schiller, who I think you've had on here before.
Yeah, he's been on here.
Adrian was very kind and helpful. And we had a lunch. I remember going and having lunch with him. And he said, do you know what? I think you should do what you've been avoiding. And that's basically all he said, roughly. And so I did. And I just went into the dark. Because, going into darkness is, it's tiring.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, it really is, if you want to really, really do it properly. And there's a big audience, it's a big theatre, that.
In the Old Vic, yeah.
The other thing was, it was in the round. So, and so there are people, it was, what she wanted to do was, the Bouffe du Nord is the theatre of Peter Brook in Paris. And what she was very keen on doing, she wanted to make the place feel like the Bouffe du Nord. Now, the Bouffe du Nord is a very special space that Peter Brook found in 1975. And it is really, really extraordinary theatre where the audience, even though it's a cross arch, the the audience is very much on top of it, and it's possible to kind of make you feel like you're almost in a studio. Well, she kind of wanted to have that feeling of and the walls are crumbling, and it's all very old. You know, it's a bit like, is it the Wilton? Yeah, it's a bit like the Wilton musical, I suppose. You know, and therefore you have an audience which is literally, some of the audience is you can touch, you know, because you're in the round, and there's about, I don't know, 7 or 8 levels of that, and then on the other side you got the whole of the bloody Young Vic going all the way up, you know. So it's you've got to walk onto that stage. So you're in a studio amphitheatre. You're in a studio, though. You're in all forms of kinds of theatre, because you're in a studio, but you're also in a very big space, and that space has to be filled, and everyone's got to feel what you're feeling. So the people who are sitting next to you, you've got to set, that's got to go up to the top, you know. So you've got to carry a lot on in with you. And also, you know, she is demanding, and you know, she requires wants, you know, asks you to dig deep.
Yeah, I think there's an interview you gave, it's on Digital Theatre at the moment, about just you one-on-one with an interviewer, and you made a comment about how Yael sort of kept coming up to you and kept saying, no, go deeper. Go deeper into the darkness. Keep going deeper. And
then they're very funny when I also had trouble, you know, with the lines and everything, because there's a lot of lines. For Danforth, and there's a lot, you know, and I, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I'd get lost. I remember we were rehearsing, and I came in and I started blah 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 blah, and then I looked over. Well, I didn't look over, but I could see out of the corner of my eye she was doing press ups, and she revealed to me later that she did it deliberately to annoy me. Because she wanted, because she wanted to get, you know, she wanted to see me being annoyed, and at the same time, you know, doing the text. So that was that. Sorry, go on.
Because I've never seen heard of a director doing that. Although usually I think they would come up to you and go, no, I need to see more annoyed. He's more annoyed. But no, but she's actually in the corner.
No, she's more annoyed. That's her approach. It can be.
Yeah. Well, she's
I know she's annoyed quite a few actors.
Yeah. And it just, I mean, I remember speaking to Adrian about this. Richard Armitage gave an interview to Digital Theatre with Matt Wolfe. And where he said, once you rehearse the whole thing in rehearsals, of course, fully polished from start to finish, he was in a corner just shaking and crying, just not knowing what to do. And Yael came up to him and said, are you okay? And he said, yeah, we have to do this twice on a Wednesday and a Saturday. How are we going to do this? So what was it like sometimes twice in one day?
Well, I mean, it was really hard.
Yeah.
That's all. It was just hard. It was
tough,
hard work. It was like going, you know, really, it was the closest. I've never worked down a mine. But it's the closest to it that I think I've ever done. I mean, it was such an enormous success. You know, it was, but it required a level of fitness and concentration that, you know, that you had to go home and make sure you were, you know, fit in order to be able to do it. So it was hard work.
Yeah, I remember.
I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I asked Adrian that same question, and he said, at the end of the day, you're not working down a coal mine. You know, just put one foot in front of the other. And he said, make sure you get a good night's sleep and eat your greens, and I'm sure you'll be.
There you go.
That's all you got to do. So throughout that process, and just looking back on it now, who is Danforth to you? How would you describe him?
Well, I mean, he's McCarthy, really. And also, he's every single political leader that believes that what they are doing is for the good of everyone else, but ultimately, it's not at all for the good of everybody else. It's for the good of themselves, of him. It's for his own, you know, but truly believes. And also, I think there's a very complicated thing with characters like this. I think, like a lot of dictators, I think this is a man with a huge, huge ego. But ironically, a sort of weirdly low self-confidence. I know that sounds odd, but I mean, and that sort of blind belief that what he says and does and is true, is right, it's been proven, this is what works, this is how it has to be done.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it like that, you'll have a chance, one chance, and if you fail, then that's it. Because you're a rotten apple, you know, and this barrel is full of good apples, but there are one or two, and we have to get rid of them. I mean, you know, it's kind of, it's cut and dried, black and white thinking. It's, you know, it's not human thing. Not you can't, you know, you know, that's the way it is. It's the Bible, for Christ's sake, you know, the Bible.
Yeah.
And the Bible is, you know, everything it says in the Bible is right. But of course, it can't be, can it? I mean, you know it can't be.
Yeah.
Right. It's all allegorical, you know, it's mainly just stories and allegorical stories and metaphorical and, you know, fairy tales and also, you know, it's a guide, you know, it's not, you know, and it's not, you know, for me, this is the Jack thing.
Yeah.
But the other one is, I mean, I've worked with, I know people, not like Danforth, but I mean, I worked in British Railways when I first, as a furniture maintenance when I left school, Camden Town, you know, with this crew. And there was this guy there who was very like, he was kind of basically Hitler, really, you know, because he believes that's how you get the best out of a group. But I think that's kind of what I'm saying. I think that's...
No, that's great.
Is that clear?
That's great. Again, just a few more questions about Danforth. You sort of mentioned in that interview that at that point where Giles talks about his father, and you said you had this sort of idea that Danforth was abused by his father. Where did that sort of...
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think certainly there's every possibility that would have happened. Yeah, abused physically, slapped around a lot, probably. And I mean, there is the repetition of abuse in life. You know, those that abuse often become the abuser. And I think, I mean, some of the research that I did, I mean, I've done before in other characters, has led me to that. You know, and also you don't have to be, you know, you have to read many books on whatever it is, self-help or psychology or you know, to know that is you know, it's a historical repetitive syndrome. So there's every possibility that I did have.
Yeah, I know, it's really, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there or anything. That was...
No, I'm surprised. It's a long time ago, man. It's like 8 years ago. So, and there's been a bit of water under the bridge since then. So
of course,
a bit of a fuzzy memory.
No, but it's a good... I was just such an interesting allegory into that, and I think it really fits. Allegory, or
I mean, the thing is that I mean, the thing is that it's that the point about Danforth is that he is just a very, very angry man. He's just angry, all the time. So, and that requires a level of being for 2 hours. Where you are virtually running the show all the way through, is that everything that I'm being told is basically you're lying. You're all lying because you're not doing what I believe should be done. That you know, so it's like woof like that. You know, I mean, when you talked about that first entrance, and that first entrance was worked on quite a lot in terms of until she felt I got it. You know, is to get on to. You know, as I remember, but it's a while back. But you're very kind.
That's great. I just have two moments in particular that really stood out. Well, the whole performance stood out, but two things in particular was the line where you had, I would hang 10,000 that dared to rise against the law, and just, I think you really captured the anger of that man and just how like solidified he is in his ways. It's like, this is how I roll, and I don't care if there's 10 people, 100 people, and the line says 10,000 that dare to rise against the law. It's
well, I mean, the numbers are difficult, aren't they? Because I mean, you know, 6 million, you know, these numbers are difficult because to make the audience feel 10,000 is you've got to work on it. You have to hit it. I think that by that time, the thing about him is that the more he's losing control, the angrier he gets. Okay. So you know, and it's a sliding scale, you know. So so there is a tremendous anger by the end, an absolute, you know, I mean, it's white anger, although I was probably very red, but it's absolutely, you know, it's I'm not, you know, furious. Furious.
And I couldn't. And the other moment was the bit where Abigail goes crazy when
that was so difficult. That was so difficult to do because I'm not the best line learner and line learner. No, it's not. It's rubbish. I'm not. That was complicated because there was a lot happening on stage and around me, and to you know that thing. It's you know when you go like that, and it was one of those. It was one of those. Yeah. It was you know, because you've got obviously your actor, your technical stuff has to be working, but at the same time, you know, you've got to be lost. Because that what you're suggesting? I seemed very lost there, or I was unable to control anything. Or what was your impression?
No, it was just that moment in particular when Abigail just goes like completely crazy after Goody Proctor, you know, tells a lie for the first time in her life, and
that's right.
You know, I can imagine like, well, to be honest, I was thinking your eardrums probably took a lot of that screaming just like 8 times a week, and what was that like? Just
it was. I've still got very good hearing, but
still here.
Pretty. It was ferocious. In a way, it was quite good because it kind of gave me a leap forward for the character to go. You know, this girl is possessed. She is possessed. You know, she's of the devil. This has to be cleansed and got rid of. You know. So they were very. It was a really, really good cast. I mean, you know, it's an absolute brilliant actors in it.
There were some amazing people in there.
Yeah, really amazing. It was an extraordinary show.
Yeah, you know,
the last show that I think I've done that I think I could say, well, apart from some of the stuff I've done with Good Chance, and it's Ango, this last one. SS Mendy was very special. But in between that has been a bit of Bill Kenwright and so on and so forth, shows that, you know, really, you know, that's pitching, you know, it's just earning the money to pay the rent. But that's the last show that I did that show was a big one for me. It really was. It was strong.
Well, I think it will live on for a very, very long time. I think
I must see this film at some point of it.
It's on digital theatre. The whole production.
It stays on. It's on. Does it stay there? It's a long time ago.
As far as it's still there. I mean, as far as I know, it's on there for indefinitely for the time being, and hopefully indefinitely as well. Because I think anyone who wants to study the Crucible, will study the Crucible at school or do it.
I see. So it's used for. I see. Okay. Shame I don't get. Not a very good deal now.
but anyone who's interested in the play should see your production that you did with Yael and Richard.
Yeah, I would recommend that too.
Yeah.
It's often on the syllabus. It's a play that's always on the syllabus.
As you said. Just quickly, what was it like working with Richard Armitage? Because I was a huge fan, from The Hobbit.
He's adorable. He's absolutely adorable. He's a really, really nice bloke. He's very quiet and very self-contained. And very generous, actually. And I never forget every night. I don't know whether Adrian, you probably asked Adrian this as well, but every night, Adrian probably said it as well, that every night we would come out the stage door and there would be, you know, signage going on. There was queues all the way around the whole theatre. And he went to every single one and he signed every single one. And sometimes he would be there for an hour after the show, having gone through that show, which is 3.5 hours long, and gone through, you know, what's his name, Proctor has to go through, and still signed to the very last person. So he's a good guy. I mean, it's not, it's a business and it's good if you do that. Cool. However, he means it, you know.
Yeah.
He's a very cool guy.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of his.
I'm not trying to blow smoke up his ass, honestly. I genuinely liked him.
No, that's good to know. It's good to know. I didn't know Adrian didn't mention that, but that's
Don't ask about Adrian. No, that's not true, Adrian. I love you.
Yes, we love you, Adrian. If you're listening. Let's see. Do I have any more audition? Working with Yael Farber, press ups in the corner. How would you? Yeah, cool. So just one last question on the Crucible, for which has sort of come to an end. How would you sum up the play, like your experience and indeed the sort of wider message that it portrays? Because I know you mentioned there McCarthy, it's an allegory to McCarthyism. It's based on the Salem witch hunts and everything. What would you say?
I think there's a very straightforward, very, very straightforward is look at history, learn from history, don't make the same mistakes, you know, and we are all human. I mean, you know, and it's a play that is, in a way, it's really, really simple. I think.
It is. Yeah.
And that, you know, it's simple because life is not simple. It's saying very straightforward message is that we are utterly corruptible, and that I think that power over other people can be so misused, and it's all about ego. It's not about creative social building or creating a society that actually works. It's about fear. It's about drumming fear into. That's, you know, I mean, we just have to look around us in the moment. You know, you've got Putin, you've got, I mean, you know, every regime at the moment that is, I mean, I work quite a lot with refugees, and you know, coming from Afghanistan, people come, you know, under the Taliban, you know, Bashar al-Assad in Syria, you know, all those regimes basically they terrify, destroy, and poison, and that this play, that the Crucible is about that, and that's because it's because the you know the system that wants to, you know, print itself on you is actually poisonous and full of in a way. You know, it's I don't know. It's about I suppose we're a bit like sheep. You know, it's a bit like sheep herding sheep. You know, I mean, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Sorry, the reason I'm stuttering is slightly because I think I've said it, and I think I'm expanding too much because I think it's there. I think that it's that we are not sheep. You know, and Danforth, you know, is barking, you know, but he's not a dog, you know, and you know he has, you know, if only he could for one moment take a look inside himself, then, you know, maybe it wouldn't, you know, the play wouldn't have happened. McCarthy, you know, it's that fear of the unknown. I mean, you know, I mean, there was a lot of racist abuse, I believe, in Ukraine when there were people from Africa who were students who were trying to leave. And all the white people were kind of welcome with everybody with open arms once they're crossing over the borders. But the Africans had terrible, terrible trouble, and they were treated, you know, very badly. But it's simply because it really is down to the color of skin. Yeah. It's that people were just something that it's the fear of the unknown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've got to get to know the unknown. You know, you've got then they're no longer unknown. They're known. And that's going to feed you ultimately, you know. That's what I believe about. I mean, that's very simplistic, but knowledge is power. Education, blah blah blah. That's what I think. And also, Arsenal are going to win the league this year.
I hope that's too. I just have two more questions for you today. If we jump into it. Yeah, just a couple more.
Just another 5,000-6,000 questions. Just go on.
No, it's fine. Just two more before we finish, and then I'll let you get back. I'm sorry if this is a bit of a corny question in a way. You've probably heard this many times, but specifically for actors sort of making the journey out of drama school now, in those first few years, they could be very busy or they could not be very busy. Do you have any advice on how to keep the faith and just to keep going, as well as actors to keep the faith that everything will work out for them?
I think that's something that will become evident. Weirdly, I think, you know, if if you stick at it, stay there. If you have the staying power, if you stay and you work at it, eventually you'll find out whether it's going to work or not. It'll happen. It's kind of fate. Fate will drive it. It's not, you know. But keep your footing. Keep training. Keep doing it. I mean, I don't do much acting at all now. I mean, I think I'll probably be pretty rubbish. Oh, it'd take me a while to get back into it, but I do. You know, I love Shakespeare. I just love it. It just makes me feel when I'm looking at it, and that's a pretty good thing to do. You know, try and learn, maybe, you know, learn a little bit of something every day or every week or something. Look at it, go over, keep fit. Really, keep fit in every sense, and see what happens. I think it's really hard at the moment because, well, I mean, in fact, actually, there's a lot being made in terms of film, television series, and things like that. I mean, there's a huge amount, you know, that's being made, and I think there's new studios opening up in the UK. But in terms of theatre, there's just no money in it, is there? And I guess, you know, it's also what I feel for is. I feel very much for is that it's very difficult if you don't have any money to go into the profession. It's become, you know, if you have, you know, reasonably well-off parents or whatever, they will often pay for, you know, they will see you right. Whereas if you do have nothing, it's difficult to get grants these days. In my day, you see, I got a grant. I was 1974 is when I went to drama school, and I had a full grant. A full grant, and I mean, I was basically paid enough to be able to, and my fees and enough to live on. And so that meant that, you know, people from, you know, quite difficult backgrounds were able to do it. I tell you what I do think at the moment, which I'm thrilled about, really, really is and, you know, diversity. I sound like Michael Gove. Remember when Michael Gove? God, it was so sad. Read that, Mike. Yeah, I do. I think what's amazing at the moment is the quality of actors, and I you know, the quality all around is just so much better than when I was young. And the fact that, you know, they're so diverse. It's so diverse everywhere, you know, and that reflects a country, reflects society. You know, it was a very very white world when I was starting out. You know, but some of the talent now is just phenomenal. So I don't know. Advice I would give is just keep going, and then it'll become evident.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, sorry, I wish I could say.
No. Don't apologize.
I do think, you know, keeping your brain alive. You know, and your body fit, and don't drink too much. Enjoy life. I think also it's very important to observe. I think it's actually, I'm also a bit lazy, but I love airports. I love train stations. I love cafes. I love, you know, in fact, I'm often having to be pulled away from just staring. I mean, we have a lot of squares and things around here, and I love to see the tourists all around here. I live in Arles in France, and there's, you know, there's a lot going on here, you know, and I love just sitting and watching. And I think observing is very important.
Yeah, I like observing as well.
I think, and not to feel guilty about it either.
No,
it's okay. Just because you think you're doing nothing, but you're not. You know, it's all happening.
Yeah, exactly. No, I like observing too. I think Brando even talked about that as well. The great actor observes. Brando. That was a terrible impression.
Okay, you're doing well. I love Marlon Brando. I love it.
I love, and that's another thing is to watch loads of other actors that you really like. You know, like there's an actor in my generation, for me, is the best. I'd worked with Mark Rylance a lot, and I did
amazing.
Hamlet with him. Yeah, I'm asked about that. Hamlet, and I did Much Ado About. I played so we shared a dressing room for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And so I know Mark very well. However, Mark is, I think Mark is a brilliant genius actor. But there is an actor that actually, in my generation, that not a lot of people know. And his name's Douglas Hodge.
Yes,
Do you know
I know of Douglas
Dougie?
Hodge. Yes,
I think Dougie is, he's a genius. He's a genius. And what it is for me is I don't want to see me. When I go, I don't want. Well, I want to see what I want to see. I don't want to see, because obviously I'm an actor, so I know Douglas and so on, or whoever I'm watching, I tend to know them. But I don't see him at all. I just see who is he playing, and I think that's special when you have that.
Yeah, I've heard of Douglas Hodge, and I spoke to another one of his friends, Harry Burton, who's been on.
Oh yeah, well Harry, yeah, I know Harry. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on the show. He was actually the first guest I ever had on. Actually.
Oh, is he? He's lovely, Harry.
Yeah, we had a lovely conversation about Pinter. We absolutely just talked about the caretaker and Pinter's upbringing and everything. It was just wonderful to hear. Did
he play Mick in that? You remind me of my uncle's brother, who was always on the move, that man, never without his passport. And my girl's very much ill-built, bit of an athlete.
Yeah.
Long jump specialist.
He carried his violin case like a papoose. I was just like, his language is amazing.
Came in number one for Beckenham Reserves.
Yeah.
His fiddle on his back like a papoose.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, I'd love to do Pinter. I want to play Mick one day. I want to play.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. I mean, that's some of the stuff he says is just.
Aston's a good part,
Aston as well.
I did that at school, actually. It was when I was at school.
Yeah.
So, is that it, or do you want more?
I have just one more question for you.
I just one more question.
One more question. I swear to you, that's it. That's enough today. This is a question I like to finish on with every show, which is, could you tell me an experience or experiences that you've had in this business that you'll never ever forget?
Well, it's good and bad.
It doesn't have to be bad.
Well, I'll give you two. It's worth. I mean, Epidaurus walking on that stage for the first time speaking, was unbelievable because I became, as everyone else in the cast did, part of something that is the beginning of. I mean, we were sharing in the beginning of democracy. It's where people came to put on plays and decide on how do we organize this thing called society. The worst was I did Great Expectations at the. In fact, it was the first ever performance of it. Really, it was at Richmond, and I played Jaggers, and it was all very theatrical. And I was doing the speech, and I got to there, and my mind went completely blank.
No,
absolutely blank. And then I had to call for a line. And then I got out of it and it was okay. It's the only time I've ever had to call for a line. Now, for an actor to have to call for a line, for me, it's like, I mean, that's like I missed the penalty in the final of the World Cup. It was the most awful experience in my life. I really, and of course no one noticed really.
That's good.
I mean, obviously people noticed on, Guy gave me but really the audience, it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
But for me, and I think that's an interesting lesson.
Yeah.
It's an interesting lesson where for you, because you're inside something and it means so much to you, and really, it is only a play. It's not the end. It's not. Nothing is the end of the world. Well, probably it's, the world's burning. Everywhere around here it's burning. Jesus. And London's burning. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Jack dying in one speech is not a big thing.
It's not
in Shakespeare's time, when Shakespeare's plays, when they were being performed for the very first time, they used to pay double for the first night. The audience did, and the reason was because he was handing out scripts. You didn't really know the whole play. You had your bits to do, and they paid double just to see the mistakes, to come and see, to have a laugh at all the big. the car crashes that used to happen.
Like, see an actor go to be or not to be. That is the
Yes. What the answer? No. Oh no, the question.
What is the question? Oh yes, remember that in rehearsals. Yeah.
Live. I mean, to die. Sleep. No.
No. Wait. Right. To slings and archers about slings and slings and arrows of outrageous
Fortune.
Outrageous fortitude. No, fortune.
Tell me something. Are you an actor then?
I am. Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm an actor, and this is a nice thing to have on the side. I think.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, it's good.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I mean
and you're very good at it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's a fun thing to do, and just I've been very lucky to talk to some amazing people, yourself included, and everything. And it's just a lovely thing to have to keep growing along the side of the acting stuff, because I always love talking to people and interviewing people, especially like experiences like you had in Epidaurus and with Yael and everything like that. And I love it. It's a really cool thing to do alongside of it.
What do you do? What one you've got? Was it a YouTube channel? Is it? I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, it's good. So the video of today will go up on YouTube, and also the podcast is live on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So hopefully it reaches as many people as possible across all kinds of different platforms. So and it's a fun thing to do. And I've been very, very lucky to have some people on like yourself and stuff like that. And I can reassure you that was my last question for today. So
okay, good. All right.
So it's all good.
It's been a delight, Oliver. All the best. Yeah. Good luck with it all. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I absolutely will. Absolutely. If you just hang on while I'll finish the recording. I'll say goodbye to you one-to-one, and because it just makes it easier for the edit and stuff like that. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. This is the Uncensored Critic podcast, and I will be back soon. And Jack, once again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a genuine pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for myself. Thank you.